Okay, let's take a look here and give this a shot. So I had actually recorded this whole video, and Evan sang a song during your time to think, but for some reason didn't record. So you don't get the Evan singing. Maybe I'll send you an audio track you can think about. So if we're looking at what is 10 squared, let's take a peek. That we can write that in two ways. We can write that 10 times 10. We could also write that like this, 10 squared. So if we think what is 10 times 10, we can think back to our chart from the other day. And so we would have 10 times 10 equals 100. Okay, what is 15 squared? Again, you could write this like this, 15 squared, little 2, which is the same as saying 15 times 15. And if we put those together, what is that? Pause for a second. Let's think about it. 15 times 15. I don't have that one just like locked in my head. 225. Okay. So pause where you are right now. Do these next few: 20 squared, 7 squared, 25 squared, and 10 squared. Go. I'll be here when you are done. Awesome. Thank you for pausing and doing that. Let's take a look and see how you did. So we got 20 squared, which is again 20 squared, or 20 times 20. Oops, times 2 times 20. So a sneaky way of doing this, we could go and look and see, okay, 2 times 2, 4, 2 zeros, 100. There we go. 7 squared, so we have 7 times 7 is 49. We have 25 squared. 25 times 25 is 625. And 10 squared, this is just written the same way as up there, but with the little superscript 2 instead. So we know already that 10 squared is 10 times 10. We know that 25 is 25 times 25. Oops. 25. You got that. Okay, let's scroll down and see what else is in here. To find the square root, you need to find the factor that multiplies by itself. So this sign right here, it looks like a check mark matched with kind of like a long division sign. That means the square root. So if you see square root, it means that something times something equals this number. Okay, so we need to think about, okay, it's going to be something times something is going to be the same number multiply itself if it's a square root. So it's not 2 times 3, but it's 2 times 2, or 3 times 3. Okay, so thinking about our perfect squares helps us to think about these. So find the square root of 4. So I would write this like this, square root of 4. And I think about, okay, what times what equals 4? 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. Okay. What is the square root of 36? So I could just go like this, square root of 36. What times what equals 36? 6 times 6 equals 36. Okay. You're just putting that one factor in there that you're going to go multiply by itself. So again, pause here, do these next few. Excellent work pausing. Okay, let's try this. Let's go over it. 81. Okay, if we went square root of 81, we would have 9, because 9 times 9 equals 81. Reminder, the square root of a number is a single number. Okay, you don't write 6 times 6. You just write 9. Okay, 121. What is the square root of 121? If we think about that chart, I remember that 144 was 12 times 12, and that 100 was 10 times 10. 121 is 11 times 11. The square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 4 equals 16. You could double check it like this, I suppose. Times 11 equals 121. 2 times 2 equals 4. You could double check it like that. The square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so when we're looking for the square root of something, we're looking for what times what equals that. Let's flip over. Okay, a square has an area of 36 centimeters. I got a square. It's got an area, 36 centimeters squared. Okay, what is the length of one side? So in a square, we know that we go length times width, and that's going to give us our area. What do we know about the area, the sides of a square? Not necessarily my square because I drew it poorly, but a square maybe that looks like this. What do we know about the sides of that square? We know that they're the same. Okay, this and this and this and this are all the same. So it's got to be something times itself is going to give us this. So we could go square root of 36, and that's going to give us 6. Okay, questions that seem harder, but they are not. Okay, so if you see something like this, we see a square root of 10 times 10. So we know a few things. We know what is 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So we're looking for the square root of 100. What times itself equals 100? It's up here. So the answer, not 16. That looks like a 16. 10. So the other thing you could do is you just look, okay, this is 10 times 10. So I know I can get rid of that. I can get rid of that. And we've got, it just equals 10. If it's like 7 times 7, what's the square root of, if it was written like this, square root of 7 times 7, you know it's just going to be 7 because something times itself. Let's try this. The square root of 6 squared. So we could do the same thing here. We could solve, okay, what's 6 squared? 36. What times what makes 36? 6. But we could also go, okay, square root and, the square root and the square cancel each other. So we're left with 6. So if I had the square root of 736 squared, we know that the square root and the square cancel each other out, so we're left with 736. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. When both the square and the square root are present, they cancel each other out. This is what I just talked about. So if you had 100,000, the square root of 100,000 times 100,000, we cancel out this, we cancel out this, we're left with 100,000. Okay. I'm going to show you a cool tool that you can play around with this. If you're in the live class, you already saw this. If not, just a second. Okay, I'm going to show you this cool tool. I'll post the link in the notes and on the site. So you can take a look here and play around with this a little bit. So if we're in, let's go into Explore It. So if we're looking at exploring, we can see, we can drag this little bar up and we can see that when we're dragging it and it's on a square, we can see, okay, the area of this is 9 units. And if this area is 9, we can see it's 3 times 3. If I drag this up a little bit more, I can drag it up to 4 by 4, and I can see, okay, the area is 16. On the side, I can see that 16 is a perfect square, so the square root is going to be 4. Something that's kind of neat about this is if I'm in between 10 and 11, you can see I'm in between some perfect squares. The perfect square of 10 is 100, and the perfect square is 11 is 121. So I'm kind of in between. So that helps me try to figure out what my square root might be. So if I'm looking at, okay, I'm looking at 111, what's the square root of 111? I know that below it, the next one lower is 10, and the next one up is 11, so it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's like 111. That's almost halfway between 100 and 121. So I'm going to say, maybe it's 10.5, and that would help me with estimating a little bit. Okay. One other cool thing you can do with this is you can play around a little bit. So it asks you it's going to say what the target area is 1 unit squared. So if you're looking for 1 unit squared, what would you drag up? I would drag up to 1 unit and then hit check. And that's going to tell you, okay, it's going to say, okay, if it's 1 unit squared, what's the square root of 1? It's just 1, and you can hit check. And if it's right, it's going to put her in there. Now it's going to say, okay, target area 100 units. Let's go up to 9.9, 10. Oh, almost 10 units. Let's check that. Okay, so if it's 100, the target area is 100. What is the side lengths are 10. What might be the square root? We know that 10 times 10, we already know this, is the square root. So that's going to go in there. Let's try one here. If we went 6 and we actually went like 6.2, it's going to tell you the number of selected squares should match the target area. So we need to do some thinking. 6 times 6 is going to be 36. And so you can use this to kind of generate this list of roots and square roots, and you can really play around with it, and it's pretty cool. So I recommend that you mess around in there, give it a try, exploring square roots. That will help out with some stuff. You've gone through the lessons, and then take a gander through the practice. And if you have any questions, as always, let us know. So that's it for today. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, be good to each other, and as always, we miss you, and stay safe.